Welcome to Who Wrote That Up for You, a daily podcast that shines a light on the American justice system and its role in empowering the powerful to take from you. The justice system is the only branch of your government where an individual, rather than the collective, can make the system act for you. It puts power in the individual's hands, but it's broken and being used against you at a time when you need it most.
And welcome to Who Wrote That Up for You. I am Sonia Ebron, co-founder at Courtroom 5.
And I am Deborah Sloan, the other co-founder at Courtroom 5.
Truly wonderful show lined up for you today. In a few moments, we will speak with Tiffany Graves. She is the pro bono counsel at the Bradley law firm, one of the largest law firms here in the Southeast, based in Birmingham, Alabama. So excited to speak with her. Before we get there, Deborah, what is on your mind today?
The Utah Sandbox, or that's what we call it, but it's the program that issues Utah bar licenses to paralegal practitioners to help people, basically to address the pro se litigant problem initially. And I'm just reading report that they are making good headway into helping middle class people, and they say middle class, but these are people. I mean, not everybody who can't get legal aid are middle class. Some of them are still lower class, but people who cannot get free legal go to might. Consult with they call them licensed paralegal practitioners, and do a better job in court. And so they're really um, uh, really making headway into this, and it's a very positive thing. The public sees it as positive. Lawmakers see it as positive. The states see it as positive. Lawyers are not quite on board. And, and that was the gist of the article, that now they have to get lawyers on board to convince them that these people aren't taking jobs away from them. But I think it's a good idea. I think a lot of other states are following their example. And I think, this might be a way to go for the whole country, but we do have to convince lawyers that it's not taking away their jobs.
It's interesting. Yeah, I've been watching the Utah Sandbox in particular, and some of the others in the works for a while. I think it's an exciting movement just to sort of explore some alternatives to the traditional way
Right.
legal services are delivered. So happy to hear that news coming out of Utah. More of that, please. That's great. That's great. Well, at Courtroom 5, we believe the courts belong to the people, in particular to the people who use them. And we, the people, are coming to claim our courts. So if you are in court without a lawyer, or you need to sue someone and can't find a lawyer to represent you, get yourself over to courtroom5.com. Try a limited version of our services for free, and we hope to provide some relief for you there. At this time, it's my pleasure to welcome onto the show Tiffany Graves at Bradley Law Firm. Tiffany, thank you for joining us on Who Wrote That Up for You.
Glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So you are the pro bono counsel there at Bradley. Tell us, if you would, what pro bono means and what you do as the pro bono counsel.
Okay, on the legal side, pro bono means representation without the expectation of compensation. It really is just that basic, delivering legal services for free for people who would not otherwise be able to access legal services. And, as lawyers, we have a professional obligation, depending on what state you're living in. It may be mandatory that you deliver some level of pro bono services for people who are considered low income. And of course, that definition varies depending on who you ask. But nevertheless, pro bono is providing free legal services to people who wouldn't otherwise be able to access legal assistance.
That's excellent. Now, Bradley is a big law firm. You've got hundreds of lawyers, I think, around the country. And so that's a lot of pro bono effort for one law firm. What do you do then as pro bono counsel to make sure those hours are designated properly?
Great question. So we have over 600 attorneys, 10 offices throughout the Southeast. And as you mentioned at the top of the podcast, we're principally based in Birmingham, Alabama. I am resident in our Jackson, Mississippi office. And my full-time position is finding ways to engage our 600 plus lawyers in pro bono service, in serving the communities where we live and work. And as you might imagine, throughout the Southeast, there are many opportunities to help people who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford the legal services that come out of a firm like Bradley. So it's important that we do it. And it's nice to be able to have someone like me in this role who can coordinate those efforts. And what that looks like for us and for a lot of large firms that have positions like mine is really connecting with community organizations. Determining the scope of need, where pro bono lawyers would be most beneficial, where we can build capacity for legal aid organizations that quickly reach capacity within their staff to help them, bring in more resources, both human and otherwise, to support their work. And we work with a number of nonprofit organizations throughout our footprint and beyond, in order to deliver these services. But we do it hand in hand in most instances with legal aid organizations, allowing them to bring clients to us who've been screened, who have been sort of shown and demonstrated that they have financial need and need a pro bono lawyer to help them, kind of resolve their legal issues. So that's how it works for us. There's no shortage of pro bono work, that's for sure. We try to say yes more than we say no when organizations reach out to us, recognizing that our lawyers are busy as well, but I really do appreciate our firm prioritizing service to the community. So it's something we encourage our lawyers to be involved in, and it's something that I, as pro bono counsel, don't have to twist their arms to do. People understand, especially in a state like Mississippi, especially in a state like Alabama, where the number of people who fall below the poverty line is a significant number. So we know we can help, and we really do answer the call.
Fantastic. That's extraordinary. I'm thinking about the ability of a smaller law firm, a more modest law firm who wouldn't have a pro bono counsel, and just how they would go about delivering effective pro bono services. Do they just wait for people to come through the door and help who they can, or how does their effort? How do you leverage your position or the firm's pro bono counsel role in a way that a smaller law firm without this kind of talent would do?
Well, I will say, I think our solo practitioner and small firm, colleagues probably receive a lot more calls from people in need than we even do at Bradley. They see a large firm like Bradley and think there's no way they're going to take my case. But I think our solo practitioners and smaller firms, they get these kinds of calls all the time. So they have a more direct line that doesn't necessarily always run through the legal aid organizations like it does for a larger firm like ours. But I do, even without a pro bono counsel or someone, sort of managing those efforts, tons of solo practitioners do pro bono. I say this as somebody who ran the Mississippi Volunteer Lawyers Project for several years before, coming to a law firm to do this work. Most of my volunteers were solo and small firm lawyers who were out there eating what they kill, but also making time to help people in their community. And I always had so much respect for that because their resources are limited in ways that larger firms simply aren't. So for them to make the time and spend the money to support people in their community who couldn't afford lawyers, I just always had so much admiration for that. But legal aid organizations are connecting with firms of every size to get pro bono support. So as someone who ran the Volunteer Lawyers Project, you better believe I had good relationships with small firms as the same way that I did with larger firms to make them aware of opportunities where they could support our clients through pro bono work. So they do it a lot like we do, but I think the outreach is probably more coming from the organizations than it is being led by someone in the firm, because they don't have, these sorts of positions, generally speaking.
I so appreciate you sharing that about small and solo firms and their willingness to do pro bono work. I think many people in the profession think it is just the opposite, that because they eat what they kill, they don't have time and don't, but that's not true. And I really appreciate you pointing that out. That's fantastic. So is it necessary for a person in need of services to be qualified by legal aid, or do you all have your own qualification process, or how, if I were in need of legal services and couldn't afford a lawyer, could I just walk into your office and ask for help, or what is the process there?
Right. No, that's a really good question. I would say for the most part, we really do get our clients from legal aid organizations because they have their own screening processes in place. And we have confidence that they are referring people to us who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford lawyers. And we're careful about that in the sense that, again, back to our small and solo firm practitioner colleagues, we don't want to take business away from them if we're helping people who could actually pay them for their services. So we're very mindful of the people we're serving and making sure we really are serving people who have demonstrated need for legal help. And we're able to do that, really in partnership with legal aid organizations. But we do have people who come through the door and call us. As Pro Bono Counsel, I get a lot of those calls. You Google, pro bono or pro bono counsel, and my name is going to come up at some point, especially if you're looking at the states in which we have offices. So we do get those sort of cold calls, and we examine those on a case-by-case basis. We don't flat out say, you didn't come to us through a legal aid organization, so we can't help you. But we're looking at things like capacity, and also what we typically do in those instances is redirect those people to a legal aid organization so that they can be screened, and they can get that sort of administrative support and otherwise that we get from legal aid organizations in order to potentially become a Bradley client. So we do what we can, quite frankly, to see if we can bring them on as a client at Bradley. But to the extent that we can work with our legal aid and other nonprofit partners to do some level of screening, that's always our preference.
Fantastic. Now, I know legal aid offices generally filter also by the types of claims that a person has. Do you all are you all filtered in the same way, or like what kinds of services might you provide for your pro bono clients?
We don't have the same sort of priority areas that I think legal aid programs do. And for many reasons, having run one of those programs, you really do have to streamline your services for reasons of staffing and financial resources and everything. I think all programs would like to help anybody who comes through the door, but that's just not feasible for many reasons. Here at Bradley, our pro bono program, and it's one of the things I really like about our program, is our cases run the gamut. We're going to do landlord-tenant matters, but we also have about 20 capital cases where we're trying to get people off death row, who have innocence claims and those sorts of things. So it really can be just about anything. We do a lot of, sort of transactional work with our corporate and business lawyers where we're advising nonprofits on a host of legal issues that are sort of specific to that area. So, there's that sort of more transactional work, but then we're in court with our pro bono cases a lot, standing up alongside our clients and helping them, restore their rights in some instances, and really try to, help them find some resolution to whatever issue they may have on both the criminal and civil sides. A lot of your traditional legal aid organizations, particularly if they're funded through the Legal Services Corporation, they can't handle criminal matters. They are often really restricted to just civil matters, criminal adjacent matters like maybe expungement. But for the most part, civil legal issues, we don't have those same restrictions. So we're able to take things on both sort of the criminal and civil side as it makes sense for us to get involved.
That's extraordinary and really good news. And so I think a lot of people who are in need of legal aid may not reach out to the legal aid organization because of the filters that they have. But you would encourage them, I think, to go ahead and apply because they may be referred to a Bradley and be able to receive pro bono services that way. That's really good news. And I think the whole movement of pro bono from law firms such as yours is good news for the access to justice movement. You've been involved in access to justice work for a long time. You mentioned the volunteer lawyers group a long time ago. I know you were head of the Mississippi Access to Justice Commission at one point, and now moved into a more private space. Tell me, from an access to justice lens, why is it important for big law firms like yours to be involved in access to justice initiatives like this?
It's crucial. Law firms have a lot of resources to bear. We have human resources in the sense that we can do pro bono. We also have financial resources that allow us to support legal aid organizations and others, that are serving communities. So it is crucial. We are lawyers. We are part of the legal profession. And as I mentioned before, we have a professional responsibility to help people who would not otherwise be able to access lawyers and our legal system. And we're big players in this profession as larger law firms. So it is absolutely critical that we be involved in whatever capacity we can in access to justice work. And that's something that I believed when I was on sort of the nonprofit side. I always worked with law firms. I just thought it was crucial not only for them to be involved in the work, but also to understand and appreciate the scope of need in our community. You can sort of get in the private practice space and lose sight of the fact that so many people are struggling to access our courts. And not just low income people. There's a lot that, if left to our own devices as lawyers, and we had to navigate the legal system and figure out some things, we would struggle. So sometimes it's important not to forget where you come from or even where you are when you're trying to, get a sense of exactly what is happening in our world and where you can help. So one of the things that I saw as a real directive for me in those past roles, running MVLP, running the Access to Justice Commission, is to communicate with private practitioners that you are an essential part of this work. We can't just rely on our legal aid programs. Yes, they need your dollars, but they need your time. And there are so many ways that you can support them. Lobbying efforts, there's just so many ways that we as lawyers, and not just lawyers, legal professionals as a whole. I do a lot with our professional staff here at Bradley. Paralegals help us in our pro bono work. Legal assistants are essential to helping our lawyers open files and interact with clients and get things filed. It is very much a team effort. It's not just the lawyers at this firm who are a part of, delivering pro bono services and achieving the greater mission of facilitating access to justice for all. We truly all have a role to play. And because law firms have so much influence within the profession and within our communities, we absolutely have to use that power and influence to try to make things better for everyone who is trying to access our legal system.
It is so important. That is so important. And so let's talk briefly about legal tech. You've seen legal tech, most of it going to law firms, right, to make things more efficient, but also increasingly to have an impact on access to justice for all. All right, can you talk briefly about your involvement and your interest in legal tech, the use of legal technology to increase access to justice?
Absolutely. It sort of started with me several years ago when I was at the Volunteer Lawyers Project. And one of my kind of first introductions to legal technology was the Free Legal Answers program that the American Bar Association started, around, 2012, 2011, somewhere in that neighborhood. And Mississippi was kind of one of the, after it started in Tennessee, sort of us being neighboring states, someone reached out and said, we're hoping to expand this effort into other states. And we want to, see if Mississippi would kind of be a part of this rollout effort. So I was excited about it. I thought, okay, wait a minute. So there's an opportunity for members of the public to go onto the site, ask questions, for lawyers to go onto that same site, respond to these questions, and there be that engagement. Because so many times, yes, people need lawyers. That goes without saying. But there are also times when people just need to know kind of what to do. Is this even possible legally? Just sort of asking questions to get started. And that, I think, was what that site is tremendous for. So this was a way to connect people who have legal issues with lawyers. That was frankly not something we had at all in Mississippi up to that point, any sort of technology like that. And I live in a very rural state where access, transportation, there are some challenges. So for me, I was excited about the possibility of people in very rural parts of Mississippi, like the Mississippi Delta, being able to ask questions of people in Jackson, where we have the largest population of lawyers. They wouldn't be able to interact with Jackson lawyers otherwise. So this technology was bringing people together and allowing them to get their legal questions answered in a way that was transformative for our state. So that was sort of my first so we can use technology to really crack this access to justice puzzle. From there, I moved on to the Access to Justice Commission after I left the Volunteer Lawyers Project. And having sort of had that taste of legal technology, I thought, okay, this is my opportunity to sort of take this to a different level. Because access to justice commissions, for people who aren't aware, are really designed to examine the delivery of legal services within a state and decide what's working, what's not, what's broken, what can be fixed, and who do we need at the table in order to do it. My job was really bringing together stakeholders, lawyers, non-legal professionals, people in the medical profession, just faith-based all over, to say, what are you seeing out there and how can we come together to sort of solve these issues? And I knew technology was going to have to be something we considered. So during my time at the commission, we were able to bring in some forms, for people who were getting divorced, for people who were seeking guardianship, for people who were seeking emancipation, those kinds of things. Simple, easy to use. Click on sort of someone walking you through how to fill out the form, download some instructions about how to file it and how to prepare yourself for a hearing. Those things were significant. We didn't have anything like that in Mississippi. Other states did. And I would sort of admire from afar what they were doing in Texas, California, and Florida with all these fantastic forms that people could access on state Supreme Court websites. We didn't have anything like that. So we were able to bring some forms. Another thing, we have a number of people who are disenfranchised, cannot vote in the state of Mississippi because of their criminal records. Not to mention, they can't get certain housing opportunities, benefits that they could otherwise be available to get because they have criminal records. So we developed an expungement tool, another use of legal technology, where you could go on a site, sort of enter your past criminal charges, and be told whether or not you could qualify for expungement in Mississippi of your felony or misdemeanors. And then once you got a yes, you would then be led to a page that said, and here are the nonprofit organizations that can help you get that expungement. Huge for people who have misdemeanors that could have been off their records years ago, but they sort of assumed, I have this record, it is what it is, I can't do anything about it. And they would get on here and see it and be able to be directed to a legal clinic that was happening or an organization that would take them on and help them get their criminal records expunged. So that was a significant legal tool that we developed while I was at the Access to Justice Commission. So, those are just a few examples of, things that weren't major in terms of sort of developing these tools, but in terms of impact, absolutely have had a significant and tremendous impact for people who otherwise would not have been able to ask that legal question of someone, knowledgeable in a certain area in another part of the state of Mississippi. Wouldn't have been able to get their criminal record cleared. Wouldn't have been able to get emancipated because they never would have had a lawyer who would have provided them with the form without charging them some amount in order to get it. Those sorts of things are what facilitate, what increase access to justice. And technology leads the way on making those things possible.
That is absolutely right. That's why we're here for sure. That's great. Tiffany, thank you so much. I'm going to share your organization's, your law firm's website here on the screen for folks that are interested in learning more about what you all do. Where else can people find you online?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can look up my name, Tiffany M. Graves. I'm also on Twitter at Tiff M. Graves. That's another good way to find me. And, it's a mix of sort of fun and professional tweets, I guess, about sort of my work as pro bono counsel and also just access to justice issues generally. So I think those are two good ways to track me down and see what I'm thinking about at the time.
We will share those in the show notes for sure. Tiffany, thank you so much for the work you do in pro bono and in access to justice generally. We'll have you on again soon. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much.
Just extraordinary work done, and I think it's so important for people, the public in general, to know that law firms do care, particularly big law, do care about access to justice issues enough to have talent such as Tiffany's in a dedicated role, to just sort of facilitate that giving. And so just really good news all around there.
Great. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Deborah, tell us about the answer to the last quiz and what you have teed up for next.
The last quiz, the question was, a successful blank can end your case, but not usually on the merits. The answer is a motion to dismiss. The choices were motion to vacate, notice of appeal, motion for summary judgment, and motion to dismiss. All right. Today's question? True or false? A motion in limine can end your case on the merits. If you know what a motion in limine is, can that end your case on the merits? True or false? Okay.
My. Again, I do not know the answer to that. I'm looking forward to Good thing that there are places like Courtroom 5 where you can go and find those answers. I should probably do that. But that's great. That's great. I look forward to the answer to that one as well. All right. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thanks as always for joining us on Who Wrote That Up For You, and we will see you next time.
Are you feeling beleaguered, angry, or afraid, as if things are spinning out of control and you're powerless to stop them? It's easy to just let things slide and hope they don't get worse. But they often do get worse. The thing is, you're not powerless. Our courts belong to us, and their purpose is to give power to the powerless. Don't let your grievances pile up without redressing them. You can handle this in court. Or, if someone takes you to court, you can take them to school.